What I'm going to be teaching you is the French defense on the Caro-Kann in one video. Is what I'm going to do. Now, this is not in depth, but this is my opinion on the French defense and Caro-Kann. So let's start out. The most popular move for white is king's pawn 2 squares forward. And there's two really good defenses. First defense that I want to teach you about is the French defense. And that's where you move this pawn right here. You move your king's pawn 1 space forward. And you'll see why. And then let's say white does another move. Then you can move your queen's pawn 2 squares forward. And then if white captures, then you can capture back. And you're in this position where both of your bishops can move. Therefore, I recommend the French defense because it allows you to get a position where both of your bishops can move out. They can both move out. That's actually really good. Now, the other defense, which is called the Caro-Kann, is where after white moves their king's pawn 2 squares forward, you move your queen's bishop pawn right here. This is called the Caro-Kann defense, as you see right there. Now, this has the same idea. So after white makes their move, then you can advance your queen's pawn, and then they can capture your pawn. Now, at this point, you have options. You could capture with the queen, or you could capture with the pawn. But capturing with the pawn is the Caro-Kann way. Whereas if you want to capture with your queen, you probably should have tried the Scandinavian defense. I have a video on Scandinavian defense, which is pretty cool. So now this situation is different than the French defense situation because now this bishop can move, but this bishop still can't. Whereas in the case of the French defense, both bishops can move. Now it's white's turn, so white is going to try to do something dangerous. In fact, white is most likely going to come here and put you in check. It's not a problem though, because all you have to do is move your bishop or your knight in the way. And so it's hard to say what will happen. You know, there could be exchange of bishops and all that kind of stuff would happen. But let's back up. Let's back up and let's go with the French defense. See, the French defense is, in my opinion, far superior because of this. Because once white captures and you capture, both of your bishops have the option to move out. Therefore, I personally think the French defense is a better opening for black. It's a better defense. That's my current opinion. Other people may think the Caro-Kann is better, but I tend to prefer the French defense because it gives you the option to move both bishops out. That's my recommendation. But in the end, it doesn't really matter very much because the ultimate goal is just to start the game. But I personally have come to love the French defense. And that's that. And at first I thought it was stupid. Okay, for the longest time, I thought that the French defense was stupid. And the reason I thought the French defense was stupid was because with this pawn in the way, it blocks your bishop. Not so, because after the exchange of pawns, the bishop can still flow. So when first looking at this, I'm like, what's that? Ooh, brother, ooh, what's that, brother? You know, that was my reaction when I see this, because I thought, well, that's stupid. I thought this was absolutely stupid. But it's really not, because you know, your bishop is only going to be blocked temporarily. So after that, so now what happens if white doesn't? What happens if white doesn't capture that pawn in the exchange variation? Some people like to just go here and just advance that pawn. So now this pawn can't move and it's permanently blocking the bishop. Or is it? It's not necessarily permanent because the game has only begun. It's actually not bad this is not a bad position. Contrary to what I thought before, I was wrong. I admit it, I was wrong. Here's what I love to do. Here's what I love to do in the French defense advanced variation. I like to do this, and I like to set up a black Queen's Gambit. The French defense can, in some cases, lead to a black Queen's Gambit. I'm offering the Queen's Gambit from the black point of view. So if white decides to take the gambit, look at that. If white takes the gambit, then here's what we have. The bishop takes that pawn, and if you're playing with somebody and they don't know about the Queen's Gambit, they may fall for this, and then they'll start moving out their other pieces, and then here's where things start to get a little bit interesting, because if you look at this situation now, we're trying to set up a scholar's mate, and so if the opponent does a stupid move, they may attack the queen, but then it's checkmate. So you can set up yourself a delayed scholar's mate. If you start with French defense and they advance the pawn, then you offer black Queen's Gambit. If they take it, then you can set up a checkmate. But what if they don't fall for that? Well, you're still not in a bad position by any means. They could move this pawn in the way. That's not bad, but then you still have all kinds of different options. You can still go here, and you could offer an exchange for queens. The game, it's only the beginning of the game, so you're not in a bad position, and you're still equal in pieces. Like at this point, I'm pretty sure that not a single capture has been made. I'm pretty sure there is not actually. Let's see, how do I turn off this analysis? How do I even turn off the analysis? I just want to see the move list. That's so weird. But there's been no captures. There's been no captures I can see. In some cases. But anyway. So that's just the beginning of the game. But let's back up a few steps. Let's say that when you offer the black queen's gambit, what if they decline it? What if they don't take your pawn? Well, then you have a whole different game. And that's not a bad thing, because they may make a different move, and then you could just advance your pawn, and then this bishop isn't blocked. This bishop is still blocked, but only temporarily. And honestly, guys, that's not even a bad thing, because I want to show you. Let's say if they were to do something, like put this bishop right here. Well, think about this. You still have this bishop, because it's on this side of the pawn chain instead of this side. So there are times where having the bishop trapped behind the pawn isn't a thing. Maybe you need it on the side. Maybe you need to defend your king with the bishop. That's actually not bad. So what I'm learning is that the French defense is actually better than I thought. The French defense is better than what I thought it was. And I kind of want to see where it goes, because I never used the French defense before. But now that I've analyzed it a little bit, I want to use the French defense more often. Because the Caro-Kann is nice, but at the same time, every opening has its strengths and weaknesses, is what it comes down to. And really, you should use the opening that you feel most comfortable with. However, the final and most likely reason that I tend to prefer the French defense is simplicity.